D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you on Friday. Derek Mason and I are live at the pub in the Gulch, 411th Avenue. The SEC tournament rolls on today. Willie Donick is still in California with the Nashville Predators. They start a back-to-back in Southern California against the Anaheim Ducks tonight, the Los Angeles Kings tomorrow, before the Predators head home next week. Derek is live and in living color. He is playing hurt. He is playing ill. He has two yellow Gatorades here, Willie Donick. Two yellow Gatorades.
You mean lemon lime? Lemon lime?
No,
Gatorades?
yellow Gatorade, Willie.
He's got two yellow Gatorades.
You mean citrus cooler then if it's yellow? Citrus
Absolutely, absolutely not. So we have been on the road all week long because of the SEC tournament. All of our coverage, by the way, of the SEC tournament is presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. And also brought to you by Guinness, thenewcumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle and ATV. Now, guys, I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a fan of Maximum Chaos. You may have heard that once or twice. And
Yes.
we had Maximum Chaos in the SEC tournament second round. Let's just go through this. We'll start in chronological order. We will start with the first game of the day yesterday. Ole Miss, Arkansas. Score is tied at 80. Arkansas goes to the free throw line with around 7 seconds left. Arkansas misses both free throws. Ole Miss grabs the rebound. Then Sean Padula sinks a long three-pointer with a second left on the clock as Ole Miss knocks off Arkansas 83-80. And that was just the beginning, but Derek Mason, a rough loss for the Razorbacks with the game in their hands at the free throw line. Two missed free throws and a buzzer beater three the other way. Ole Miss escapes Arkansas 83-80.
Yeah, Arkansas had that game. I thought that was a game that Arkansas needed. Willie, you and I have talked about Arkansas all season, and Coach Cal and what he inherited. That's an athletic team. They got a good team, but for some reason, they do things toward the end of the game that just cost them. And yesterday was identical to what you had seen throughout the season. They had the game won. Only thing they have to do is make it a free throw contest, and they were not able to do it. So I want to see what happens to Arkansas. Do you still believe they will get in the tournament? I think they're still on a bubble. I would be surprised if they did get in. They've had some good wins, especially toward the latter part of the year. But that game last night, if they win that game, I think for sure they're in. But they let it slip away.
Yeah, they you know what's interesting? The league is so good, and we're going to talk about all these games, that the strength of the league is going to dictate that. I think they're all going to get in. I looked at Joe Rexrode's piece this morning. I don't think Joe Lunardi has come out with a new bracketology yet. I'm guessing that's coming before the games really get cranking today, although Joe probably will. Joe Lunardi. We should call them the Joes, right? You got Rexrode and Lunardi. And by the way, Rexrode's getting some serious camera time. He's sitting right behind Jay Billis and Dan Schulman.
Do you think he did on purpose?
This is not the first time this has happened, by the way. I remember last year at the SEC tournament, he was right in between the announcers. And I had a fun game. It was almost like playing peekaboo with my son. At one point, Joe Rexrode must have left to go to the restroom. He wasn't there. I turn around. He's right there. He's back in between. Right, it's like, where's Joe? There he is. That's what it was. So Joe gets prime real estate on ESPN every year.
Yeah, and Mitch Light's right next to him. So a couple of stars of
shout out Mitch Light,
getting some serious camera time on ESPN. But D-Mace, they're all going to get in. It really looks like if there were some other teams that could have maybe jumped up and knocked or threatened the Vanderbilts, the Arkansas, the Oklahomas, the teams
So
on
you
that,
think
on
the
that
SEC
lower.
will get 14 teams in?
That's what it looks like. It's crazy. 14 out of 16, but they've earned it, right? Because of how well they played outside of the league and some of the developments that have gone on in the other tournaments. Nobody yesterday really rose up and grabbed anything that will get the tournament committee's attention. Not enough of them to knock the 14 out, I don't think.
Let's talk about why at the SEC might have 14 teams. The next game in the SEC tournament yesterday, Texas, 94-89 in double overtime against Texas A&M. The Longhorns knocked off the Commodores in the opening round of the SEC tournament. They knock off 14th ranked Texas A&M in double overtime in the second round. Texas now advances to face Tennessee this afternoon, tip-off at 2:30. But Texas, which was truly on the bubble, entering the SEC tournament, 2 wins already. I mean, I think at this point, Willie, that Texas has probably made its case. But if Texas can continue this run and knock off the Vols today, you can put it in Sharpie as far as I'm concerned.
I would agree. The Sharpie would be a no-doubter if they won today, which I'll be impressed if they can. But when you watch Texas, how in the world are they even on the bubble? They have major talent. They should have made it easier than they did. But look, this is life in the SEC. You can look bad on any given night in this league. You give them a lot of credit. They have been hungry to go after it. That game was incredible to watch. I watched so many games yesterday, not just in the SEC, but outside of the league. It went right down to the last possession. There's so many double overtime games. Middle Tennessee won in double overtime yesterday. I mean, it seemed like every other game is coming right down to the last shot. But Texas A&M, I thought the most intriguing thing about that game, Texas A&M is about to shoot a 3 up, I think, 5.
Yes.
In overtime. Buzz Williams calls a timeout as this guy is rearing back to shoot.
But you got to talk about why he called the timeout, because that ball was going from hand to hand. It was a lot of erratic, just no one could get control of the ball. And when they finally got control of it, he called timeout. Wade hits a 3-pointer, but it's null and void.
It doesn't count. And then so that instead of taking full control of the overtime, Texas comes down, gets away with a blatant travel, which, by the way, when are they ever going to call travel? Like, what does a guy have to do to call traveling? You can do.
They don't call traveling basketball no more. You know that.
They don't call traveling. The guy lifts his pivot foot up. He jumps. That's the first thing you teach a first grader that you can't do is when you shot fake, you can't lift your feet off the ground. And he did. And he slides over and hits a 3. And so it's literally a 6-point swing, or maybe even more than instead of Texas A&M having complete control of the overtime, Texas is right back in it. They get it to double overtime and they win. Hats off to Texas. They might have been in even if they lost that game, but that game goes a long way because they got the win that a lot of other teams in that situation didn't get, like Ohio State, like Indiana, like Villanova yesterday. There was 1 or 2 others that I was watching closely, but so Texas got that big extra win. I think that should be enough to at least get them into the first 4.
And finally, in the nightcap, Kentucky escapes Oklahoma 85-84. The Wildcats led by 10 with 1.5 minutes left in the game, and you thought, all right, that's a wrap. But Oklahoma had other ideas. They crawl back into the game. They take the lead with 6 seconds left, 84-83, before Otega Owe hits an incredible baseline layup at the buzzer. Kentucky survives 85-84. That was Oklahoma's probably last best shot at making a case for the NCAA tournament, but Kentucky survives on a incredible shot by Otega Owe at the buzzer.
But I think,
I think Oklahoma will still get in the tournament. I think they'll get there.
You think they'll still get in?
Oh yeah, they're. I think they're because of their non-conference wins. And this is crazy to think that they are in SEC games now with the 1-1 in the tournament, 7-13 against SEC teams. They did so well in the non-conference. I think it's going to give them what they need to get over the top. I think the 14 are going to. The only teams not going to the dance will be LSU and South Carolina. So I think they're going to get in. Oklahoma, I think, is on top of Texas, maybe even on top of Arkansas. But they're right there with Vanderbilt, even though that they're the 14th seed in the SEC tournament. But let's talk about that game for just a second. All right, Kentucky is ahead, 83-77, with 41 seconds to go. So they come down. Oklahoma hits a three, 83-80. Okay, no problem. Make your free throws, get the ball in. Back-to-back turnovers. And all of a sudden, that lead goes away in a matter of seconds. In real time, it happened so fast. I was looking at all the reactions in the Kentucky fandom. And, of course, it's always fun to watch Kentucky fans because they think they own the gym when they come to Nashville. They were ready to have a heart attack. And then here comes Otega Oweh, who for the second time this year shatters Oklahoma. And, oh, by the way, he used to play for Oklahoma.
Right.
Remember that?
Yes.
That's twice. He did it in Norman, Oklahoma during the regular season, and he does it again doing that. That was wild.
By the way, the latest bubble watch on ESPN, which has been published within the past couple of hours, to your point, Willie, I was shortchanging the Sooners. Bubble watch has the Sooners at 87%, the Longhorns at 70%, the Razorbacks at 62%, the Commodores and Bulldogs at 61% each.
They're all getting in. I've looked. There would have to be incredible, and I just don't see it. Like I'm looking at leagues, like for example the ACC, with Flag hurt. You're thinking, well, maybe that draw could open up, and a Stanford or an SMU perhaps could win that tournament. That would start to make the 13th and 14th teams sweat in the SEC.
Well, Stanford gave Louisville one hell of a scare, but Louisville on another buzzer beater, if I'm not mistaken,
Adam,
right?
They were up by 15 in the second half. It was incredible. Louisville came roaring back and hit the buzzer beater, and it was the classic buzzer beater. It was a scramble play on an offensive rebound. The initial shot doesn't go in, which is why you want to take that last shot with about 2 seconds left so that you have a chance for what happened. It's a scramble. It looks like Stanford's got the rebound. It gets bopped back to the guy at the free throw line. He just lets it go from the elbow. It's the classic. It leaves your hand. The red light on the outline of the backboard comes on, and boom, it goes in. There's not even a fraction of a second left. So there goes Stanford's chances. And SMU the same way, right there with Clemson all the way through the game. Led for most of the game. But Clemson found a way to beat them in the final seconds. And so it looks like North Carolina now has a golden opportunity. And they may not even have to win this game against Duke, but they can beat Duke and put themselves in Sharpie. But I think the ACC.
I think it helps if they.
I think they'll have the 4 in from that league, but that's it.
I just want to point out Dustin and Hopkinsville. So keep in mind that Kentucky won the game yesterday. Okay, I want everybody to remember this fact that Kentucky won the game yesterday. Dustin and Hopkinsville. Let's talk about it. Chandler gets elbowed, no call, starts bleeding, no review. Carr gets pulled down, should have been flagrant. Any momentum in that game was manufactured by the refs. Phantom foul calls on Oweh. Fears 2 of 11 for 3-pointers. The only reason Oklahoma was in it was the refs. Keep in mind, Kentucky won the game.
Yeah, I mean, but it goes to what Willie says. I mean, you can't please Kentucky basketball fans. That's just, I mean, they invented basketball. There we go. As I'm looking at Kentucky fans, and she said, I guess it's her husband, is an Alabama fan.
Yes.
How does that happen?
Kentucky, Alabama tonight at 8:30, by the way.
Exactly. Yes, but Kentucky won. So, but I mean, listen, this was said before all tournaments even started. And it's starting to be true that the SEC tournament might be better than the actual tournament
Jay Billis went on, I can't recall which radio program or podcast it was, but at one point, Jay Billis, lead ESPN college basketball analyst, said he thought it would be harder to win the SEC tournament than the NCAA tournament, considering the opponents you're playing on a daily basis.
Yes. And it seems to
think about
it's raining true a little bit.
Oh yeah, think about what Texas would have to do to win this tournament. You tell me if you think it's harder or easier than what they might have to do in the NCAA tournament. They beat Vanderbilt and they beat Texas A&M. Those are 2 quad 1 wins. They still have to win 3 more games to win the SEC tournament, and it starts with Tennessee. There's only heavyweights left, so they would have to win 5 consecutive quad 1 games to get it in 5 days. That I think is more difficult than the NCAA tournament, which at least you get a break. You don't play back-to-back games, right? You would certainly play tough teams, but 6 games over 3 weeks is a little different than 5 games in 5 nights against 5 quad 1 teams.
So the XCC action continues today. This is when the big boys play. Ole Miss and Auburn at noon, followed by Texas and Tennessee at 2:30, Missouri and Florida at 6, Kentucky and Alabama at 8:30. So again, this is when the big boys play. The top 4 seeds in the SEC tournament begin play today. Just a hop, skip, and a jump away from where we are. We are at the pub in Nashville in the Gulch on 11th Avenue. Come see us. Plenty of delicious food and beverages on tap. Why wait for St. Patrick's Day? The party starts early at the pub Nashville. Enjoy proper shenanigans all weekend long with Irish fare, drink specials, and live entertainment, including Irish step dancers, bagpipes, and more. Don't miss the fun. Guinness specials all day. Enjoy all the pub's awesome food, including Irish fare like corned beef and cabbage and Guinness stew. $7 Guinness, Harp, Magners, and Smithwick Strouts. $7 Jameson and Jameson Orange shots. $9 Irish Sinker shots, and $13 Lucky Green cocktails here at the pub in the Gulch. 615-737-1025. We will, of course, continue to update you on all SEC tournament action. It kicks off in less than an hour. Ole Miss, Auburn at noon at Bridgestone Arena. But coming up next, we've wandered through the frontier, as Willie Donick likes to say. We've wandered through the quarterback frontier.
Have we gotten past the Rocky Mountains yet? That's what we have to hope. If you watch
I believe
Primeval, that's the goal of the people on the frontier. They've got to get past the wolves and all of the people on the frontier to get to California. Have we made it past the Rockies?
We're running out of water, so I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
Right. Like I always talk about with the Oregon Trail, you always have to make sure your oxen don't drown in the river and that your family doesn't die of dysentery. But there is a question now that some of the free agency signings have started filing in here. There's a question that I do want to ask as it relates to the Tennessee Titans. We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Willie Donick, Adam Mingen live at the pub in the Gulch, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. We have so much fun with March Madness and our Take It to the Bank because this is when everybody's watching college basketball. It is so entertaining, and there's some heartbreak with the picks that we make, but not for me tomorrow. I am going to be red hot. I hope I'm going to go 4 for 4. This is going to be exciting. So it's all brought to you by F&M Bank, who sponsors our segment every Friday at 1:45. And their motto is very easy. Banking made easy on purpose. It's a great way to go when it comes to your finances. You don't want your finances to be more complicated than they have to be, and that is the goal from the start. Build a relationship. We just had Dustin from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, weigh in and defend his Wildcats. F&M Bank has a branch up in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So I hope Dustin will check that out. We've got 6 locations over in Clarksville, and of course, they're all scattered through Middle Tennessee on West End Avenue in Nashville, Murfreesboro, where the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders are playing in the conference semifinals today after their double overtime win. Banking made easy on purpose. They've got so many great tools like the Smart Swipe card. They've got plans for small business owners. They've got HELOC programs. They've got a lot of things that can help. Find the nearest location to you. myfmbank.com. That's myfmbank.com. We take it to the bank Fridays at 1:45 with F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. Member FDIC.
Cam and Shador obviously training together as we bunch of highlights there. Shador spinning it all over the place. Him and Cam,
really good player.
You like Cam Ward a lot, right?
Yeah, I think Cam Ward's the number one pick, and it's clear to be the number one pick. I've said this. I think the thing that surprised me more about Cam Ward than I anticipated was how well he throws the ball from the pocket. I mean, there are so many examples where that ball, he hits his back foot on the ground, and that thing jumps out of his hand, and it's an absolute rip. And the ball downfield, I mean, he throws the seam ball as good as anybody. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Jaden threw the crosser really well, but throwing the ball in between the hash, he absolutely steps on the football and rips it. And so it's clear to me that he's the number one pick. It reminds me a little bit, ironically, Steve McNair coming out of school and just his style. He's not an electric athlete. He's not a dynamic athlete, but he's athletic enough. And I wish he was an inch or two taller, but Cam Ward, clear number one pick. If I was Tennessee, I would not trade out of the pick.
Tennessee Titans need a quarterback.
That was Dan Orlovsky on the Pat McAfee Show discussing Cam Ward. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Derek and I are live at the pub in the Gulch, 411th Avenue. Come see us. We will be here through 6 o'clock. Stillman and Company right after us, of course. So, to use more metaphors for the quarterback market, we've used the frontier. And during the break, I thought to myself, the quarterback market right now is a lot like when you go to the grocery store right before a storm hits. And everything you want is off the shelves. Mm-hmm. So, your favorite type of toilet paper, the extra ply toilet paper, it's not there. But there's the store brand toilet paper that's not as soft, but it will do the trick maybe, and you have no other choice but to grab it, right? That's what the quarterback store looks like right now. Aaron Rodgers is still out there contemplating his future on the beach, I guess. Have you seen those pictures, guys, of Aaron Rodgers looking pensive, looking contemplative on the beach? He's still out there. Russell Wilson is still available. But I digress. This is the question that I have for both of you. Is there anything that can prevent Cam Ward from being the number one overall pick in the NFL draft at this point? Willie, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think there's always something that could prevent him from being the pick. And I hope they don't telegraph it like this for the next couple months. Everything they've done does seem to point in that direction, is leading you down that path that they're going to take Ward. Look, I'm going to keep making this point. Cam Ward was not anywhere close to being talked about the way he is now. And I understand that as guys get evaluated, it changes the way people view it. Dan Graziano just gave a glowing report on Cam Ward. About a month ago, there were plenty of people. The narrative was, hey, neither one of these guys really are worthy of the first pick. We heard that a million times from a lot of different people. So he's the same guy. I don't think Cam Ward went to, I don't know where Aaron Rodgers went to some cave or something, came back a different guy. He's the same guy they've been watching. So I'm still going to be consistent. I don't think it's the best move for the Titans to draft Cam Ward. But look, if they think he is absolutely worthy of the first overall pick in the draft, I'm not talking about a first round pick. I'm talking about if he is worthy of a franchise-changing first overall pick, then that's fine. And I wouldn't do it just because, hey, I don't think there's any other good options at quarterback. To me, that's why you're on the frontier. I don't think they can fix this roster in 1 year. It's going to take a couple years. So to me, that's the priority. And at some point, you got to get the quarterback. So maybe this is it. I'm concerned about how the consensus has changed so much without Cam Ward ever playing a game.
But how does it change, Derek? Because Cam Ward did not participate at the NFL Combine. He has done interviews. I believe he's been here for a visit. So we've talked about this so many times. Remember, we did this exercise a couple of weeks ago where we looked at quarterbacks and where they were on big boards at the beginning of the process versus where they ultimately ended up. And Willie, as you always say, quarterbacks inevitably move up. If they're low, they will inevitably move up. So, Derek, my question is, to Willie's point, how has this consensus changed so quickly?
We have a rule in my house, especially, when the kids were younger. Like, if we see something, especially if it's a big purchase, We think about it for 24 to 48 hours before we make our decision. And if we still feel good about that, then we do it. But if there's any hesitation or anything else, because I've been there a couple of times where I go in and I'm like, man, I want that. And then it's like, okay, we need to wait. Let's talk about it. And then I come back a day, 2 days later, like, I really didn't need it. I don't want it. That's what the quarterback market is about. That's what the Tennessee Titans are doing. I think they went in, they looked at these quarterbacks. They probably loved Cam Ward, but they said, you know what? Let's go back and let's watch some more film. Or Dan Orlowski. Well, I like Cam Ward, but let me sit on this. Let me go back and think about it and watch some more film. And as you start to watch more film, you start to like the guy more and more. You start to hate the guy more and more. You start to like the product a little bit more, or you start to say, like me, I really don't need it. That's where quarterbacks are. If there's not a consensus number one guy, that's where quarterbacks are every year. You go in at the beginning of at the end of the NFL season, which is the beginning of the new season, and you look at these quarterbacks and you think, okay, I don't like them as much, or I do really like them. But then you go back and you start reevaluating some things. You start looking at more tape, and either you convince yourself that he's the guy, or you actually do see things that makes you think, okay, he can be the quarterback of our franchise. It's starting to get that way with Cam Ward. I think across the board with a lot of people, a lot of analysts, they're starting to look at it now and say, you know what? Cam Ward, he may end up being the number one pick in the draft. He may end up being the guy that is worthy of the number one pick. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I didn't think so. But the more and more tape I watch of Cam Ward, he starts to pop. That's how football is. It happens each and every year, especially with quarterbacks. You either convince yourself that the guy you want to draft, you're going to draft, or you convince yourself that the guy you wanted to draft at the beginning, he's not the guy that I want anymore. So it's going to continue to happen. I'm not surprised that people like analysts like Dan Orlowski, because I'm sure Dan Orlowski a month ago didn't know, or 2 months ago didn't really know whether it was going to be Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or Jackson Dart or some other quarterback. But the more and more film he started to watch, he started to believe, and he started to talk to people. He started to believe, hey, Cam Ward might end up being the number one pick.
Remember, Willie, we talked about this a couple of times. Matt Miller of ESPN did a story where, with help from NFL scouts, decision makers, and analysts, he built a list using pre-draft grades of the first-round quarterbacks over the past 5 years. So starting in 2020, and he also threw in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders into the mix. So that was 21 total quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Cam Ward on this list was 18th out of 21, only ahead of Michael Penix Jr., Shedeur Sanders, and Kenny Pickett. So again, this is where I think there is maybe some trepidation on the part of some Titans fans that Cam Ward, in a quote-unquote normal year maybe for quarterbacks, wouldn't be going this high. If Cam Ward were draft eligible last year with Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams and Drake May, he wouldn't be anywhere near the top of the draft. So I understand why there might be some Titans fans who see this. It looks like the Titans, to use your word, Willie, are telegraphing this decision, perhaps. I could see why some Titans fans might be a little tense about that.
But hold on, Willie.
And let's
but who's to say? But who's to say? I understand what Graziano said in his article he put together, but if you throw Cam Ward in there after the season he had this last college year, if you throw those numbers in there as well, and then you put him all together with those guys from last year, I can't believe that he wouldn't have still got drafted in the first round, and he probably would have got drafted in the top 15. So to say, you know, if you throw Cam Ward in there last year, he wouldn't even have been a top 20 pick damn near. I don't believe that to be true, especially after the year he had last year, this past college football season.
Well, let's play devil's advocate on the are they telegraphed, because it really does look like that right now after the signing they made yesterday with Brandon Allen from the Cave right on the frontier. There's the frontier, and then there's even off the beaten path of the frontier, and I don't think there's even a path on the frontier. They went deep to get Allen, although you see why. You know, he's a career backup. He looks like he would fit the part of a guy that knows the offense. He's been with the Bengals, been with Callahan. He could shepherd along a young quarterback. But there's still evaluation to be done on Ward, right? He hasn't come in to throw. Like, he'll have a pro day, right, where he will throw. So that'll have everybody talking one way or the other. And then don't they have more? Don't they have a sit down, like a visit with Cam Ward that hasn't happened yet? That hasn't happened, right?
I believe it has happened.
It has happened.
So I'm talking about at the facility, not at the combine.
They didn't have him for a third. I think they've had him for a 30
Yeah.
visit, if I'm not mistaken. That's
So
already
that has
happened.
happened.
Yes.
But he hasn't had his pro day yet.
No.
Okay. So at the pro day, there could still be some things that could change the stock price. But I guess my point would be this. They could still pivot and go get, there's Jameis Winston out there. There still are a couple of guys on the frontier. But I think to have full leverage of that first pick and the full value, they might have to sort of bait that they are going to take Ward, right? If nobody thinks they're going to take Ward, if they had bitten already on a quarterback from the frontier, that would lower the stock in the first pick. Would we agree on that? In other words, if they had taken Kyle Wilson or somebody like that, then people would know they're not going to take the quarterback with the first pick.
Hold that thought.
Uh-huh.
615-737-1025. My question to all of you, is there anything that can prevent Cam Ward being the number one overall pick in the NFL draft at this point, or is it an inevitability that Cam Ward will be the Titans' next quarterback? And Derek Mason corrected me yesterday. He is absolutely right. So don't get your Cam Ward number one jerseys printed, because Warren Moon had his number one retired by the Oilers. So Cam Ward will have to wear a different number. But can Titans fans pre-order their Cam Ward jerseys? 615-737-1025. We will continue this conversation next, but be sure to tune into 93.3 FM Totally Hits tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders, a double overtime win against Louisiana Tech yesterday. They take on Jacksonville State in the Conference USA tournament. Tip-off is at 2. Pre-game starts at 1:30. Coverage is also available on the 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com.
All right, let's talk League Company. The Predators are back in action tonight against the Anaheim Ducks. The last time they were in Anaheim, they had a 5-game winning streak, and the game was tied midway through. Anaheim broke the win streak, and Nashville was sent into a tailspin. Tonight, the Predators are riding a 4-game winning streak, and will take on the Ducks again. And then it'll be the Kings tomorrow night. It'll all be brought to you by League Company. Our radio coverage will start this evening at 8 o'clock. Now, let's talk about League Company. They have continued to do great work around town. They have been in business since 1944, all throughout our listening area. They're just a phone call away, 615-567-1000, or go to leaguecompany.com. Have you had the air conditioning unit check? I'm just reviewing my tips over the week. Have you had your air conditioning unit checked in a while? League Company. Got a maintenance problem at home or at work? You need to go watch some basketball games or watch the Predators tonight, all of the above. Call League Company. They're just a phone call away. And look into their year-round coverage of their home maintenance plan. Heating, cooling, plumbing, electric. It's League Company. Since 1944, 615-567-1000 or leaguecompany.com.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I started the process. I would have told you I thought, based on conversations I had coming out of the combine, that potentially they were leaning away from Cam Ward. But they signed Dan Moore, and it just, I think that's shifted. Honestly, I really do. I think it's shifted for Cam Ward's camp. I think it's shifted for when you look at just how the Titans have prepared. Conversations that I had after the Moore signing, which were just, look, they're not going out and adding a tackle at that financial price point to protect an old guy next year. They're not doing it to protect Will Levis next year. What's sort of materialized for me over the last few days is just that, the Levis experience is really over there. There's no veteran out there that they're fishing around with right now. And that, if anything, when you talk to, Cam Ward's corner of the planet, it's just, okay, I'm going to end up in Tennessee right now, or they're going to deal me, they're going to deal the top overall pick to the Giants, and I'm going to be a Giant. I think that's really how Cam Ward's camp's approaching this right now. That's the two teams that he's really looking at. And of those two teams, the setup sure as heck looks like it's the Titans that are preparing to take him at that number 1 overall pick.
That was Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports with Robbie and Rexroad earlier this week. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. My question, is there anything that can prevent Cam Ward from being the number 1 overall pick at this point? Derek, before we went to break, you had a point that you wanted to make.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Willie, when you mention the whole telegraphing things. But my thing is, if this is the guy you want, if you feel that he can change your franchise, then to me, it makes no difference whether you know that I want him or you don't. If you feel that he is the number 1 guy in this draft, that he can change your franchise, that he can be the quarterback for your team for the next 12 to 15 years, then draft him regardless of who knows you're going to draft him. I'm sure people last year knew that the number one pick last year.
Caleb Williams.
Yeah, Caleb Williams. Everybody knew Chicago was taking Caleb Williams. They didn't make no qualms about it.
But I guess the point I'm making is what Adam was saying and what I have pointed out. D-Mace, you've seen the same thing. I think last year there was a lot more consensus that Williams was absolutely worthy of the first overall pick.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, and you're not hearing that as much about Ward. This is a little bit of a late bloomer. Still some question marks. We're talking about first overall pick here. You've got to get this right. And, okay, if you're that sure, I'm going also by Mike Morganzi's words of when you have the first pick, it's not only a good player, it's a guy that, drives the culture of your franchise.
Yes.
And if he's that guy, I'm with you, D-Mace. That's fine. If you think that, then stick to your scouting. If you believe that, it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I'm just Adam's question was, is there anything that could make you think that they're not taking Ward? And I'm just pointing out there is a pathway, right? You don't have to take him. Even if you haven't signed the quarterback here, you could still go find the Carson Wentz's, a Jameis Winston, whoever is in the leftovers, because I'm, again, going back to the same point. No matter who they pick, no matter what they do, it's going to be a rough year. They've got a lot of fixing of the roster to do. They have got one of the lowest rosters even after free agency here. I don't know where the odd makers are right now, but I guarantee you they're in the bottom 5 of the league in odds to win the Super Bowl.
Chris in Dixon on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com said, most people didn't think highly of Bo Nix. How'd he work out? How many teams would have him now? Just because they aren't the number 1 prospect in the last 2 or 3 drafts doesn't equal a lack of success.
And he's right about that. And this is what I've said, whether it was going to be, and we don't know if it's not, but whether it was going to be Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, if you feel in that building that he is your guy, then you don't mess around. Don't try to, outsmart somebody and say, oh, well, I can trade out of this pick, move down a couple of spots, and then get my – No. You're talking about a franchise that is in free fall right now in regards to how we look at them for the next, 2 or 3 seasons. If you feel that Cam Ward is the guy, draft him. That's how I feel.
One texter says, Robert on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says the Titans right now are playing everybody. They shored up the offensive line. They're going to give Will Levis a chance. Last year, he was running for his life, and it was the first time in the system. It takes time. Robert, I appreciate your optimism. I appreciate your faith in Will Levis. Stop trying to make Will Levis happen, just like Fetch and Gretchen Wieners. Will Levis is not happening. We appreciate Will Levis's service to the Tennessee Titans. Well, maybe. Most of you probably don't appreciate it because it wasn't that great. But I appreciate Robert's optimism on Will Levis. It ain't happening with Will Levis. As Charles Robinson said in that clip, they're not making these moves on the offensive line to protect Will Levis or some old quarterback. They are probably making them to protect Cam Ward.
Well, don't be surprised, because I was thinking about this last night. As a matter of fact, I end up going to, and this is the reason why I thought of it, I ended up going to Walgreens, and then I had to go to Trader Joe's. And one of the guys asked me about Will Levis. And I said, you know what? He was asking me, well, what are they going to do with Will Levis now that they brought the other quarterback in? And I said, you know what? My thinking now is don't be surprised if Will Levis is a draft day trade just to move up possibly in the second round. I mean, not in the second round, but to get a third round pick or something else. They're going to use Will Levis as leverage to try to move up in one of these rounds. And the more and more I think about it, I think that's going to be true because I don't think he has a place on this roster at this particular time. They can keep him, yeah. But I think the smart thing would be if you're going to draft a quarterback, you brought in a veteran quarterback to back up your rookie, then trade away Will Levis on draft day.
By the way, Willie, to answer your question, on ESPN, according to ESPN Bet, the Titans have the longest odds, tied with the New York Giants, to win the Super Bowl next year. So you're absolutely right. They are 200 to 1 with the Giants.
In context. If you're sitting there going, hey, they fixed the offensive line and they're going to be a lot better, I don't think so. This is a project that's going to take a while to get it, no matter what you do. So you have to be sure that whoever you take with the first overall pick, if you take that spot, is worthy of that pick. You cannot make the mistake so many teams have made and just hope that a guy that like Bo Nix is a great example. Nobody would have taken it with the first pick last year. But it's a great pick by the Broncos. They had a later pick, and they thought this is a guy worthy of a late first-round pick. There's a big difference. True?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Robert, by the way, has chimed back in. He says, I'm not optimistic about Will Levis. It's just what the Titans are going to do. It's the most Titan thing to do, so that's what they're going to do. Hey, I guess you can never rule that out. Robert does have a point there. 615-737-1025. We will continue to take your thoughts on Cam Ward. Is it an inevitability that Cam Ward will be the number one pick in the NFL draft? Make sure to tune into 1025 and 1063 The Game for updates of the SEC men's basketball tournament today, presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by Guinness, thenewcumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. The SEC tournament will be underway in just a matter of moments. Day 3, Ole Miss and Auburn kicking things off at Bridgestone Arena, just a short walk from here at the pub in the Gulch on 11th Avenue. Come see Derek and I. We will be here through 6 o'clock. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063 The Game. D. Mace, Fingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek Mason and I are live at the pub in the Gulch, 411th Avenue, right in the heart of it all. Not too far away from here, just a short walk. Bridgestone Arena, where the SEC tournament is underway once again. Tipping off right now, Ole Miss against Auburn, Texas and Tennessee at 2:30, Missouri and Florida at 6, Kentucky and Alabama at 8:30. So make sure to keep it locked right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game for all of your updates throughout the day on the SEC tournament. Also want to give a shout out to the pub in the Gulch. St. Patrick's Day is Monday. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I am wearing green today. It was a complete coincidence. I just picked this t-shirt and then I realized, it's festive. It works. St. Patrick's Day is Monday and the Pub Nashville is the place to be. Kick things off with a special St. Patrick's brunch at 9, followed by live entertainment all day and the best Irish drinks and bites in town. Guinness specials all day. $7 Guinness, Harp, Magners, and Smithwick Strouts. $7 Jameson and Jameson Orange shots. $9 Irish Sinker shots. And $13 Lucky Green cocktails right here at the pub in the Gulch. So plenty of reaction to our discussion on Cam Ward. Is it inevitable that Cam Ward will be the number one pick of the NFL draft to the Tennessee Titans? Is there anything that could stand in his way? I like this text, gentlemen, from Philip on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and I want to talk about this. From Philip, the Titans told us from the start they're looking for a generational talent, which I can say because I'm reading somebody else's text. The Titans told us from the start they're looking for a generational talent. I didn't see a generational talent in Ward, and before the interviews, the Titans were trying to trade the pick. So how do interviews make them change what they've seen on the tape?
Well, we don't know that they have. We don't really know one way or the other. We don't even know if they were trying to trade the pick, as the texter was saying here. And
although there was plenty of rumor and innuendo that they were trying.
Player. Everybody's looking for that.
Because they come around once in a generation.
Yeah.
So you can't get a generational player every draft.
No, you cannot.
That wouldn't be qualified as a generational player.
That's why we banned that phrase on this program.
There we go.
But Derek, why don't you take your
What could change? You could get a great offer from somebody that does think Cam Ward is absolutely worth that pick.
And Charles Robinson said on the clip that we played from Robbie and Rex Road that Cam Ward might be preparing himself for either being the quarterback of the Titans or the quarterback of the Giants if the Giants decide to move up and take him.
Yeah, I don't think there's, other than him, just bombing his pro day. And I'm not talking about bombing it on the field. I'm talking about bombing it in the classroom as well. Then I think that would give either the Titans or the Giants hesitation, if indeed those are the two teams that more than likely would draft them. But besides that, I don't think there's much. Beside what you said too, Adam, somebody come in there and say, hey, listen, I give you this year's first, next year's first, and something else, then yeah, that's a no-brainer. That's a deal you gotta take, I think. But anything outside of those things that I described, I can't see if indeed Cam Ward, because we don't know. It's just speculation based on what the moves the Tennessee Titans are making. I don't think there's anything that can happen from now until draft day that would sway either one of the teams from potentially drafting Cam Ward outside of something catastrophic happening, which I don't think it will.
One texter says on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, the Titans need help everywhere except for offensive line right now after their free agent signings. If I were making the pick, I would take Travis Hunter and then build everything else I could through the draft. Ward and Sanders are not going to get you over the hump. The Titans just need to take Hunter, build with him on defense, and sprinkle him in on offense because the Titans have nobody to catch the ball and nobody to throw it to them at the moment. Admit that we're going to have another dismal season next year and hope there's a better quarterback other than Ward or Sanders available early in the draft. next year. But this is what we always talk about too. There are a lot of people that say, hey, pass on the quarterbacks this year. Wait till next year. Arch Manning. You hear a lot of Arch Manning, but it's not an inevitability, to use that term again, that the Titans are going to be bad enough to be in this position again next year. Now, of course, they could trade up if they were a little bit better next year. But remember, it's been 9 years, if is right, since the Titans had the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. They traded it, but it's been 9 years. And it's a good thing it's been 9 years, because that means they've been good for most of the past 9 years. But as Derek has said, Willie, if you are confident that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback, it does not matter if Dan Orlovsky or Matt Miller or whomever thinks that he may not be a generational player. Oops, I said it. I'm banned. It doesn't matter if they think it. As long as the Titans think it, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
but
to me,
they have to think he's worthy of the first pick. That's a different thing. And let's not forget, you said 9 years ago they had the first pick. The year before that, they had the second pick. So, and that's where they took Mariota. So, look, this is a rebuild. So, what's the quickest path to get back to relevancy?
Getting the quarterback.
And that is the answer. That is the answer to your question. If your answer is Cam Ward, okay, I get that. Although I'm skeptical, just because he just doesn't seem like that player to me. He doesn't.
Well,
not as the first overall pick.
On that note, Willie Donick, there was a story in The Athletic today. How will the 2025 NFL Draft be impacted by the first wave of free agency? And the first question was, teams have been aggressive pursuing quarterbacks, be it via trade, Geno Smith, or big money contracts, Sam Darnold. Does that tell us anything about the 2025 NFL Draft quarterback class? And Nick Baumgardner, one of The Athletic's NFL Draft writers, said, quote, "We've talked and written about this since August. This quarterback class isn't as bad as the 2022 class, but it's not that much better." That was the class headlined by Kenny Pickett. Malik Willis was also in that class, if I'm not mistaken. There really isn't anyone who's even close to being a no-doubter in this group. Cam Ward, who was viewed as a day 2 pick at best when the season began, has emerged as the clear QB1. But he's a former wing T quarterback who's only been throwing like this for about 5 years. There are huge risks, even for a player with Ward's talent. I don't think any of these quarterbacks would have gone in front of J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix, quarterback 5 and 6, respectively, last year. And though it's certainly possible Ward hears his name called in the top 3, the best I can give you is that he's a top 20 player in this class. Shedeur Sanders, meanwhile, is probably a top 30 player. It would not shock me if Sanders fell into the second round.
There is a possibility. Hey, listen, we've seen crazier things happen in NFL drafts. Guys that were predicted top 10 picks end up falling out of the first round. Guys that predicted, not even first rounders end up being top 15, top 20 picks. So there are some crazy things that happen during the NFL draft. So I wouldn't put it past, Shedeur Sanders falling out of the first round. I don't expect it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Matthew in Nashville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, says, "I think the Titans were going to trade back to get Carter or Hunter. Then Carter's foot injury got out, and the Titans changed their mind. The moves they've made on the O-line and signing Brandon Allen, who knows Callahan when he used to be Burrow's backup in Cincy, suggests to me they're drafting a quarterback, which I believe will be Cam Ward."
Well, there's your consensus. That's what the narrative, the quote narrative, will be like that. But let's not forget how much is going to be written, how much is going to be said between now and the day you draft. So this narrative could change, like D-May said, if he just doesn't do well in his pro day for one reason or another, and he's exposed, then you're going to have a whole different storyline going in. So how it looks today may not be how it looks in a couple of weeks.
Luke is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, and it says here that Luke is a Miami Hurricanes fan. So, Luke, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
I don't know why you guys wouldn't take him. 0-star. Would you guys want a 0-star who became a Heisman candidate? How about a guy who played 57 games? How about number 1 in QBR? How about second in the nation in passing yards? And the only thing I'm concerned about is coming to Tennessee, where he won't have that kind of talent. I think the talent he may have had around him was pretty solid. So
look,
you're
right. You are right to defend him as a Miami fan who watched him. But you just described Matt Leinart, Danny Warfel, Marcus Mariota. Let's just go down the list of Heisman Trophy kind of talents, right? There's a dozen of them at least. So it's not the same game. You're not playing the same game in college as you do in the pro. So nobody knows.
I think the thing you can look at with Cam Ward, the positive, let's just say that the positive you can look at with Cam Ward is that just like Penix, everywhere he went, or no, Jaden Daniels, everywhere they went, they were able to get better. Everywhere they went, it wasn't like, okay, you move up to the next level and you take a step back.
Right, because Cam Ward played for 3 programs in college: Incarnate Word, Washington State, and Miami.
Absolutely. So this is a guy that at each step he was able to develop and improve. That means something when you're scouting a guy. Okay, it's not like he went from Incarnate Word to Washington State and then end up just bombing out and he had to transfer to Miami and all of a sudden they add some talent around him and now he becomes the quarterback. No, this guy improved every step that he made. So to me, that's a plus. That, okay, we draft this guy. He's shown that every stop that he can improve as a quarterback, he can develop. So why would it stop now?
Well, on the flip side of that, Derek, that's the same thing that Shedeur Sanders is saying.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to sell himself, right? He went to Jackson State. It was a moribund program. He helped that program resuscitate. Then he went to Colorado, which was also on life support, so to speak, as a football program. And although Colorado didn't have smashing success, right? They weren't a national title contender.
They became relevant
again with Shedeur Sanders. So Shedeur Sanders is trying to sell himself in that same way. But my question is, do you think that Cam Ward has a better argument with that argument? Like Cam Ward, if Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders can both say, I went to multiple programs and found success. Do you think Cam Ward has a stronger argument than Shedeur Sanders when it comes to that?
I think the argument that Cam Ward has is that his upside, his ceiling is higher than Shedeur Sanders. Because both of them can talk about how they went from one school, one program to the next and was able to develop and get better. They both have that on their resume. But if I'm trying to decide which guy do I want that's going to lead my franchise for 15 years, then Cam Ward has more of an upside. Now, Shedeur Sanders may be the safer pick, but Cam Ward has the higher upside.
What do you say to that, Willie? That same question that I asked Derek.
Well, I think we've learned over time to not oversell somebody that we have watched excel on the college playing field, right? It is just such a different equation when it comes to translating those skills. What I have heard about Cam Ward is that he will need to have a learning curve because of the offenses that he's run in the various places are not really the pro style. So when I think of Cam Ward going into a situation where the roster is where it is with the Titans, that doesn't sound like a great recipe for success unless they're willing to let him sit for half a season or maybe even a full season. Most teams don't do that right now. I just go back to the central question. You know it's going to take time to build the roster. Is Cam Ward the solution? The things that I cannot tell you as a person who just watches college football and has observed drafts year in and year out is on the interior, is he just blowing them away when he talks to them? And what would he have to do in the pro day to not do that? I just think that you have to be so careful when you have the first overall pick. Taking a guy in the middle or the late of the first round that you think has that upside, that to me is a different thing than the first overall pick being your quarterback. You've got to be sure that he lights all the boxes up.
Okay, Willie, think about this, Adam, as well. Borgonzi, where he came from. And we're not talking about Brinker because I think Borgonzi is the guy that is running this as we speak in regards to the draft and everything else. Now, Brinker may have last say, but I think Borgonzi is running this. Borgonzi comes from Kansas City. Kansas City drafted Patrick Mahomes. Did Patrick Mahomes play that first year?
No.
Not at all. So why you go get a guy that you're familiar with that can run the offense while the young guy sits for a year? I can see that potentially happening in this situation where you do draft Cam Ward, but you have who is it? Brandon Allen. You have Brandon Allen starting off the year as the starting quarterback. Why? Because you don't want to thrust this young guy into a situation that may not be advantageous for him right now. But you throw the veteran guy in there, allow this team to grow, allow that rookie quarterback to sit back and watch, and then the next year you throw him in there. Can you see that possibly happening, considering where Borgonzi came from, and that being Kansas City?
Willie, why don't you take that first?
Well, Kansas City at that point was a really good team. They were already good, and they had a good quarterback. There was no reason to rush Patrick Mahomes. That was the team that lost to the Titans in the playoffs.
There's no reason to rush Cam Ward into the. But there's no reason to rush Cam Ward into the starting lineup. Why? Because we always, or at least I've talked about, 2027 is the year that they need to have a quarterback in place. Okay, so we don't need to rush him because if he's not ready right now, that doesn't mean he's not going to be ready the next following year.
6-1. Go ahead, Willie.
No, I buy that. I see that point. Even if you know you're going to be bad, you don't want to throw a guy in there in a position to fail. If he's not ready, you can sit him. That is okay. You're allowed to do that. They did it with Steve McNair.
We will continue that quarterback conversation later. Willie Daunic has to leave us. He has to go prepare for the Predators game tonight in Anaheim against the Ducks. Puck drop at 9, pregame at 8, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. An SEC tournament update for you. 12:39 remaining in the first half. Ole Miss 11, Auburn 7. Ole Miss 11, Auburn 7 early in the first half over at Bridgestone Arena. And a reminder that all of our SEC tournament updates are presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by Guinness, the NewCumberland.com volunteer hose and gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. We bid Willie adieu for the week. He will be back in town on Monday. But coming up next, it's time to Ask D-Mace. So get your questions in for Derek, 615-737-1025. Ask D-Mace. Coming up next, Willie Daunic, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Happy Friday, everyone. This is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But we got some solutions in here, okay? Because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
It's time to ask D-Mace on D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at the pub in the Gulch on 11th Avenue. Come see us. A lot happening down here. As always, the SEC tournament is underway at Bridgestone Arena. Auburn and Ole Miss tied at 11, halfway through the first half. I do have one programming note here for you. Vanderbilt baseball has moved up its game to 11 a.m. tomorrow, a 10:45 pregame, and 11 a.m. start. 94.9 The Fan. Coverage available on 94.9 The Fan. So an earlier start for Vanderbilt baseball tomorrow because of the pending inclement weather. But it is time to ask D-Mace, and let's start with an unnamed texter. Derek, let's assume the Titans draft Cam Ward. We already know that Brinker has final say on the roster. However, doesn't Callahan have final say on who starts? So what if Callahan says Ward is not ready? Who ends up having the final say on game day?
I think it's the head coach. I think ultimately it has to be the head coach. If you've hired him to do a job, then let him do it. Now, I understand you having say over the roster, but when we're talking about game day starters, no, that's something that should be left up to the coach, the head coach and his coaching staff. So if Brian Callahan feels that, hey, listen, Cam Ward's not ready yet, then you sit him until he's ready.
One texter says, hey, D-Mace, what do you think of the rookie from last year, Bryce Oliver? I think that's his name. It is. Do you think he will be a bigger part of the offense like NWI's role now that NWI is in Miami?
I hope he is. He came on the latter part of the year. I think the last 5 or 6 games of the season where you started to see him get mixed in the offense a little bit. And I look for that to continue, especially if he has a good off season, have a good mini camp, and then training camp. He's a guy that's shown that, you put him in the game, he's going to do what you ask him to do. So I expect Oliver's participation in what this offense is going to do. I think it's going to pick up a little.
Let me ask you, because you were out in the early part of the week. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine signs with the Miami Dolphins, and it wasn't for a lot of money. I don't have the contract figures in front of me, but when I saw them, I thought to myself, why couldn't the Titans have made that work? And I believe it was Terry McCormick who said that the Titans had a similar offer on the table for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. He chose Miami instead. What do you think of that?
It's interesting. Maybe he thought that, because sometimes we see it a lot in workplaces where, your opportunity to advance is gone, where, they know who you are, they know what you can do, but for whatever reason, you're not going to get a promotion. You're just going to stay right where you're at. Even though you're doing good work, you're going to stay right where you're at. And I think that's how Nick Westbrook-Ikhine felt about the Tennessee Titans, that, listen, he was probably the most consistent receiver they've had over the last 2 years. Now, did he put up eye-popping numbers? No.
Well, he did in the touchdown
in the touchdown department.
Season.
But as far as just being a receiver, no. But he was Mr. Reliable. He was a guy that they knew was going to be out there each and every week. But he understood that I'm not going to get a shot to be a number 2 in this league if I stay here in Nashville. So let me go somewhere else. And I'm not saying he's going to get a shot
because
he's behind
exactly. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in Miami.
But the difference is he will get more opportunities in Miami because of how they run their offense. Because of they have multiple guys catching over 100 passes per year. So adding Nick Westbrook-Ikhine to the mix, it only enhances what they can do. So he just felt like, hey, there's a better opportunity for me in Miami to advance rather stand here. Because being in Nashville was comfortable for him. But he got tired of being comfortable. He wanted to go somewhere where he can get some advancement.
And remember, he was on the bench for the first
Yeah.
month of the season because the Titans were trying to make Treylon Burks happen. And I think you said this, Derek, that Brian Callahan mentioned at the end of the season that he apologized to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, if I recall correctly, for not getting him involved in the offense sooner. So, by the way, those contract terms on Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 2 years, $6.5 million with $3.2 million guaranteed. Perfectly reasonable for a player of Nick Westbrook-Ikhine's caliber. Jerry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jerry, thank you for calling. What's your question for Derek?
How it doing, guys?
Good, thank you.
Mr. D-Mace, do we see you as a announcer, as a personality of the year, or with your vast knowledge as a coach in college or in the pros somewhere?
Thanks for the call, Jerry.
Man.
You get this question a lot.
Yeah. I enjoy teaching the position. I enjoy talking to younger people about the game. And when I mean younger people, I mean middle school, high school. That's it. I don't want to go no higher than that, because even at the high school level, I think things have changed now. And I don't particularly have the patience anymore. The older that I'm getting, I don't have the patience anymore to be dealing with entitlement or entitled people. And a lot of these guys feel entitled, and I just don't want to deal with it. But I love coaching, little league. If I ever did it again, I would love to go to the little league range or middle school, something like that. But as far as college and the pros, I mean, college is nothing but the pros. That's all it is. They're getting paid. The pros are getting paid. It's just at times, and I'm not going to say all college students are this way, or academic. What do they call them? They used to call them
Student athletes,
but
Yes.
they're really athletic students. That's what they are. Professional athletic students. That's what they are. A lot of them just feel entitled, and I just don't have the patience for that. So if you're asking me the three, I would stay right where I'm at, doing what I'm doing, because I enjoy talking about it, and I enjoy meeting a lot of people, and I enjoy being on this station. So talking about sports, commentating about sports, that's what I enjoy doing.
Wes is in Hermitage on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wes, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, guys. Happy Friday. It's been a minute, so I had to call in with a dad joke first.
Let's go.
Got a good one for you today, D-Mace. It's this time of year for it. So why don't you iron four-leaf clovers?
Why don't you iron four-leaf clovers? I don't know.
Is it something about pressing them, or?
Hey, you almost had it, because you don't want to press your luck.
Oh.
I was close.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
like
man,
that.
but it's funny. My question of the day is not sports related at all, but it's funny because the last call that you took, when you started answering it, you kind of went right into what I was about to ask you. So it's super appropriate for the day. My question is very simple. What happened to Southern hospitality? Because it seems like nowadays, no matter where you go, the grocery store, the gas station, wherever it is, everybody is extremely abrasive and rude. So what's going on with that, man? How did we get here in 2025? Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for the call, Wes. Let me interject for 1 second.
I think you can answer this too.
Let me
Adam.
interject for just one moment. A lot of it is there are people like me, transplants. A lot of people in Nashville aren't Southern. I mean, actually, you know what? People think that I'm not Southern because I moved here from Washington, D.C. a decade ago, by the way. I am entrenched in Nashville. It's been 10 years now of me in Nashville. I was born in North Carolina and raised in Virginia, so I am Southern, technically, although my parents are from New York City. So that's why I maybe have that Northeastern vibe. But this city is a transient town. Derek, you've been here a lot longer than I have. A lot of people from here aren't from here anymore. So that Southern hospitality, it's changed. That's my theory. That's my theory.
I think the further and further you move outside of, let's just say Nashville, because I don't live in Georgia. I don't live in some of these other southern states that I've never have. I guess I lived in Texas for a quick minute, But the further and further you move outside of Nashville, I think that's where you sort of get the more of the southern hospitality. Not to say you don't get it here inside the city, you do. But like Adam said, because so many other people are moving here, whether it be from up north, whether it be from out west.
A lot of West Coasters, I feel like, are moving this way.
Yeah, so a little bit of that southern charm that people are used to is sort of fading away. So I think that's what's happening. I think people are just so consumed with themselves. I think a lot of it is that it's all about me. And when it's all about me, you lose a lot of that, being cordial, being nice, being respectful, because everything you're doing is about you and not about everybody else.
Here's a simple test before we go to break. Here's a simple test if you know someone is truly Southern. I learned this the hard way 10 years ago. Tell someone bless your heart, and if they take that as a compliment, you know that he or she is not the right person. The first time someone ever told that to me, I was like, "Oh, thank you."
No.
That's not what they meant.
Bless your heart.
615-737-1025. We will continue with Ask D-Mace coming up next. Another quick SEC tournament update. Auburn 18, Ole Miss 16, 7:21 remaining in the first half. Just down the road at Bridgestone Arena, 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville best deal is Boomba's Pizza and Watch Bar. Just in time for the SEC tournament. Score half off a $30 gift card and enjoy their award-winning pizza and handcrafted beverages. Visit them in Nashville, Spring Hill, or Murfreesboro. And we will be out at Boomba's late next week. We will give you those details next week. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals now while supplies last. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Fingan out at the Pub Nashville in the Gulch, 411th Avenue. St. Patrick's Day is on Monday, and the Pub Nashville is the place to be. Kick things off with a special St. Patrick's Day brunch at 9 a.m., followed by live entertainment all day and the best Irish drinks and bites in town. Let's get back to Ask D-Mace. Adam from Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, Adam, man. Hey, I've got an activity for you, D-Mace.
Yes.
And Adam, you can help him if you want. Number one, I hope you're feeling better, man. So here's the deal. So we're seeing Mike Bergonzi in this first wave of free agency. I wonder if Rand was still here, what moves he would have made. Would he have made any of these same ones? Would it have looked any different? Like, would his plan been completely different? And I'm curious of what you think he would have done.
That's a good question. Thank you, Adam. All right, so imagine Rand Carthon were still the general manager of the Tennessee Titans. And think back to last year in free agency, Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry, Tony Pollard. If you want to throw in the acquisition of L'Jarius Sneed, you can throw that in there as well. So the other contracts that were signed around the league, Derek Mason, if Rand Carthon were still in charge, who do you think would have been on this team?
You know, that's hard to say because, you know, you can look at what Rand did last year and the guys that he brought in. And some guys were productive and some guys were not. L'Jarius Sneed wasn't productive. Why? Because they didn't finish the season. Who else was on that list? Pollard. He was productive. He finished the season. So you had guys on, you know, that he brought in last year that did pretty good and guys that did for one reason or another. I'm not going to sit here and say that Rand wouldn't have made some of these moves or not, because I think that's unfair to Rand, and I think that's unfair to Bergonzi. Who's to say that Bergonzi wouldn't have made some of the moves that Rand made last year? You know, so I just think that's totally unfair to Bergonzi, and that's totally unfair, I believe, to Rand. You know, in regards to what he would have done, because last year, what did he do? He went out and he tried to address every need that they had. Did we all agree with some of the moves he made? No, but he went out and he addressed those moves. Now, ask me this question next year, you know, around this time, because we got to see how these moves that Bergonzi made during the offseason, how is it going to affect the team moving forward? If it affects the team moving forward the same way Rand Carthon's move affected the team last year, then to me, it would have been a wash in a sense. So to me, I just think it's totally unfair to compare two guys because they're under different circumstances, I believe.
One thing that has been pointed out quite a bit, maybe Rand Carthon wouldn't have done this. One thing that has been pointed out quite a bit about the acquisitions the Titans have made in free agency is that they are available. Dan Moore,
yes,
Xavier Woods, Van Jefferson, Kevin Zeitler. They play. As Jared is fond of saying, the best ability in the NFL, as you know, Derek, is availability.
Okay, but did L'Jarius Sneed miss a game 2 seasons ago?
I know we're going to get into this.
See, but
I hear what you're. Yes.
Did Pollard miss a game last year? I mean, 2 years ago before they brought him in? No, I don't think so. So he didn't bring in guys that were injured. They had injury histories, yes, but he didn't bring in guys that had been injured the previous season.
Then we're going to get into the nuance of L'Jarius Sneed was hurt, even though he didn't miss games, and I'm trying to avoid that. You can hear plenty of that at 2 o'clock. One texter says, question for Derek Mason. If you had the chance to play with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, who would you like to play for and why? Or with?
Man. Give me any quarterback, man. I didn't play with
but that's not the question.
Of them. I would pick Shedeur Sanders because I think Shedeur has this ability And Cam does somewhat, but I saw it more with Shedeur this season. He has this ability to keep the play going, to allow guys to, peel off and find a space, when things break down. He's shown that game in and game out, series in and series out, that everything doesn't need to be pretty for him to complete a pass. And that's what Steve McNair had. Everything doesn't need to look pretty for me to complete a pass. Just do your job, find a space, work with me, and I'll find you. And Shedeur was able to do that last season in college. And again, that's not taking anything away from Cam Ward, but I think Shedeur had to do it more. Why? Because his offensive line wasn't as good the last 2 years. So I saw a lot of Steve McNair in Shedeur Sanders in regards to buying time to look for guys down the field. And then he throws he throws a catchable football. And ask any receiver out there, that's all you want is a guy to throw a catchable ball.
All right, so I think I know who the identity of the texter of that question is. Chris Dwayne Sanders, who also wants to know who won silly underdog picks this year, LOL. It was you, Chris. It was you.
But who picked their rival school?
Exactly. You, Chris.
Right. Chris, if you're listening, look, you won silly underdog picks this year, but can you sleep at night knowing that you picked your alma mater's most hated rival to win, to help you win that trophy? That trophy, well, by the way, there is no trophy. That imaginary trophy is not going to keep you warm at night, my friend.
Ask him, can he go back to campus?
Can you go back to campus?
No.
That was a good question, Chris, about Shedeur Sanders.
He can't go back to campus, so there you go.
No, a representative from Ohio State University came to his door and burned his diploma in front of him and made him watch all of those Buckeye stickers on your helmet, Chris. Exactly. I don't know how many you got in your career, but they're all being stripped right now. Clay and Gallatin on our text line says, it appears our quarterback stable will be Levis and Ward based on what everybody is saying. So if that's the case, what do you anticipate the Titans' record to be this year? Throw Brandon Allen in there, too.
Yeah, you got to throw Brandon Allen in there as well.
And we're going to talk about Brandon Allen after Ask D-Mix.
Yeah. If I had to predict based on the moves they made, let's just say this. I think they will be a better team than what they were last season.
It is a low bar, to be fair.
Yeah, it's very low, but I think they will be a better team this upcoming season than they were last season.
Andrew from Dover wants us to name the NFL's generational player for each decade. So he wants us to start in the 70s. So we will use the remainder of this time, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020. So we'll go through this quickly. Here are some options from the 70s that come to mind for me. Walter Payton, Roger Staubach, O.J. Simpson, I think would have been in the 70s.
Yes.
Mean Joe Green. So if you are choosing a generational player from the 70s, Derek, your choice is?
Because Jim Brown was the 60s.
Jim Brown was the 60s.
Yeah. I think it would be O.J. And some people
O.J.
may not.
Simpson
over
Walter Payton?
Yeah, because O.J., he just, I think after Jim Brown, that type of back, he revolutionized how that position was played with such a big back. And listen, Jim was a big back too. But the speed, the strength, all of that combination that you need to have as a running back. I think OJ was a generational player. Now, you may not like OJ as a human being. I understand.
For the purpose of this argument, we're talking about football field.
You were just talking about football field.
Yes.
Then I would have to say O.J. Simpson.
All right. To the 80s, Lawrence Taylor comes to mind. Jerry Rice comes to mind. Joe Montana comes to mind. Who do you have in the 80s?
LT. LT.
I think that's an
hands
easy
down.
one.
Yeah.
I think that's an easy one. Let's move to the 90s. Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Brett Favre, John Elway.
Barry
Sanders in the 90s. All right. 2000s. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, LaDainian Tomlinson, Ray Lewis, Marvin Harrison.
Ray Lewis.
Okay. The 2010s. I guess you can include Tom Brady in there as well. Aaron Rodgers, Calvin Johnson. Who do you have in the
Calvin Johnson?
Calvin Johnson in the 2020. So active, current day players, generational.
Generational, current day players. Michael Parsons. There are several. I mean, gosh.
Patrick Mahomes?
I wouldn't even say Patrick. I wouldn't even say, because I've seen, you can go all the way back to, the 60s or, the 70s where guys were playing the way Patrick Mahomes is playing now. Pat is probably will go down as the greatest quarterback of all times eventually after his career is done. But when you're talking about generational, I don't know.
Jamar Chase,
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald is a good choice.
But have you seen? Okay, when we're saying generational,
right?
Have we seen this type of player before?
Yeah,
we've seen an Aaron Donald before. Warren Sapp. If you watch Warren Sapp play, he was just like Aaron Donald. And Ndamukong Suh at one point was just like Aaron Donald. So there have been guys that have been able to, get to the pass rusher the way Aaron Donald was able to do, command a double team the way Aaron Donald was able to do. So when you're talking about a generational player, man, it's hard to say. I need some more time to think about that one because generational is thrown around loosely a lot.
Yes, it is. That's why it's
Lamar
a banned
Jackson?
phrase.
Yeah, Lamar would be.
Yes,
Lamar would be. He would be the one guy that I say is generational.
Right. I do think a big part of being considered generational is revolutionizing the position that you play.
Exactly.
So I think Lamar Jackson would fit in that category. Here, I mean, maybe this is like when I think of Lamar Jackson, I guess you could go back. I guess this would be the 2000s or maybe the 2010s. Michael Vick.
Yeah, Michael Vick
would absolutely count as a generational talent based on that criteria. But it is a great conversation to have, and maybe we can continue it later on. But 615-737-1025. We are live out at the pub in the Gulch, 411th Avenue. Come see us. An SEC tournament update for you. Just approaching halftime in the first game. Auburn 27, Ole Miss 22 at Bridgestone Arena. Tennessee and Texas tip off at 2:30. Missouri and Florida at 6. Kentucky and Alabama at 8:30. But Auburn with a 5-point lead as halftime nears in the first game of the quarterfinal round of the SEC tournament. And all of our updates of the SEC tournament are presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by Guinness, the new Cumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle and ATV.
Hey, this is D. Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal to shed some extra pounds only to come up short. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you out at the pub in Nashville in the Gulch, 411th Avenue. Come see us. Why wait for St. Patrick's Day? The party starts early at the pub Nashville. Enjoy proper shenanigans all weekend long with Irish fare, drink specials, and live entertainment, including Irish step dancers, bagpipes, and more. Don't miss the fun. Remember, St. Patrick's Day is on Monday. But I also do want to tell everybody about the Nashville St. Patrick's Day Parade. Join me. I will be out there with 1025 The Game in 5 Points at Boston Commons tomorrow, beginning at 10 a.m. The parade is presented by Aer Lingus. Live Irish music, drink specials, and family fun all day. And 1025 The Game, again, will be on site from 9 to 11. Come see me, get some swag, sign up to win some concert tickets. It'll be a fun time. So that is tomorrow in East Nashville, the official Nashville St. Patrick's Day Parade. One quick SEC tournament update for you. It's halftime in the opening game of the quarterfinal round. The third seeded in the country, Auburn Tigers, are up 29-22 against the Ole Miss Rebels. Again, it is halftime at Bridgestone Arena, 29-22 Auburn. This is game 1 of 4. Texas and Tennessee tips off at roughly 2:30, followed by Missouri and Florida at 6, and Alabama and Kentucky at 8:30. And make sure to tune in to 1025, 1063 The Game all day for updates of the SEC men's basketball tournament, easy for me to say, presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by Guinness, thenewcumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. All right, Derek.
Yes.
The Tennessee Titans, they have their backup quarterback, Brandon Allen. That news broke late during our show yesterday. Brandon Allen has 10 career starts over 5 seasons in the NFL. Most importantly, he overlapped with Brian Callahan when Callahan was the offensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bengals. Brandon Allen spent last season as the backup to Brock Purdy with the San Francisco 49ers. And now Brandon Allen will presumably be the backup for Cam Ward this season for the Tennessee Titans. So Brandon Allen makes sense in terms of the fact, as I just said, he knows Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan knows him. You don't really have to teach Brandon Allen anything when he comes here because you should know everything or mostly everything because he's worked with Brian Callahan. But this was something I was asking myself yesterday. Again, if we are operating under the assumption that Cam Ward will be the number 1 pick of the Tennessee Titans in the NFL draft next month, my question was to myself, should the Titans have brought in a more seasoned backup quarterback? And I was thinking of recent examples of top quarterback draft picks and the backup quarterbacks they had. Bryce Young in Carolina has Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, a longtime starter in the NFL. In his first season, C.J. Stroud had Case Keenum, who's played plenty of games in the NFL. Anthony Richardson, and we will talk Anthony Richardson later this hour. Anthony Richardson had Gardner Minshew, who, by the way, I believe is signing with the Chiefs. And he had Joe Flacco, of course, with the Colts. Jaden Daniels had Marcus Mariota. Drake May had Jacoby Brissett. The only rookie quarterback over the past couple of years who did not have that seasoned backup was the Bears. Caleb Williams had Tyson Bagent, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who doesn't really have much experience in the NFL. But Bryce Young had Andy Dalton. C.J. Stroud had Case Keenum. Anthony Richardson had Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco. So my question to you, Derek, is I'm not saying that the Titans should break the bank for a veteran quarterback. At this point, that ship has sailed. But is it a good idea for the Titans, again, under the assumption that it's Cam Ward, is it a good idea for the Titans quarterback to be someone with such little starting NFL experience?
I think it's how do you see your team as a whole this season in regards to the Titans? do you see your team as a team that can compete for a playoff spot? If you do, then maybe a more experienced individual would be better as sort of a backup or a placeholder until the rookie is ready to play. Because if you do that, then it's like, okay, we're still keeping our team sort of in that win now mode, but the Titans are not in win now mode. To me, it doesn't necessarily matter how many games you've played. In this situation, it's about, have you played in this system before? Do I feel comfortable with you underneath center? If say I draft Cam Ward and we feel he's not ready right now, can you come in and run the offense efficiently? Because that's what it's about. It didn't work for Will Levis. Why? Because he couldn't run the offense efficiently. It worked a little bit better with Mason Rudolph, even though I didn't think Mason Rudolph, you should bring him back, and they didn't. But the offense ran a little bit more efficient with Mason Rudolph. Why? Because Mason Rudolph knew exactly where he wanted to go with the ball, and he tried to get rid of the ball quick. So if that's what you're looking for, someone to make your offense run efficiently while the young guy is still learning, then Brandon Allen could be the perfect person or the perfect quarterback, or let's not say the perfect. He's the ideal quarterback for this situation. Why? Because he may not put pressure on your rookie. He may not even put you in a position where you feel you got to throw your rookie in right away. What Brandon Allen does for you, I believe, and this is why they went and got him, is he's a guy that can come in, he already knows the offense, and he can help everybody else learn the offense as well, those that don't know the offense already. Now, Calvin Ridley knows the offense. So you bring in a Brandon Allen, pair him with Calvin Ridley. Now you got two guys that are on the same page. Will Levis and Calvin Ridley, what was their problem? They were never on the same page.
Right from training camp.
Exactly. So at least we bring someone in that knows the offense. He may not have a lot of experience playing underneath center, but what he does, he has experience playing in his offense under Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. And his best game was a 38-10 loss to Green Bay. He was 17 for 29 for just under 200 yards, a touchdown and an interception. So is he great? No. But can he run the offense efficiently? Possibly.
Blake Bedingfield, the former Titan scout who now writes for PaulKaharski.com. This was Blake Bedingfield's scouting report on Brandon Allen on PaulKaharski.com. Adequate backup, good mover, and can extend passes with the ability to move in the pocket. Better short to intermediate passer with occasional deep ball ability. Always felt small to me with below average height and small hands. Hasn't been as accurate as you would like, but doesn't turn it over much. If he is a number 2, you don't want him playing a lot. If competing with Levis, they are polar opposites. Levis has a big arm and is a better athlete, but obviously has too many turnovers. Allen is more controlled, but less spectacular.
Basically, it's like sums up what I just said.
Yes.
Listen, is he going to wow you? No. But what he's going to do is he's going to run the offense the way you want him to run it. It may not win you a bunch of games, but I think it keeps your offense on schedule.
I guess the flip side of this, Derek, is the one thing that you said last year, all season long, when it came to the Tennessee Titans, specifically at quarterback, was, and other positions, not just at quarterback, you need to bring in competition.
Mm-hmm.
The Titans did not do that. We talked about that specifically with the right tackle position. They did not bring in competition. That shouldn't be a problem this year. J.C. Latham has the right tackle position sewn up. But when you have a rookie quarterback, again, we are assuming it's Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a rookie quarterback, is it better to have a backup who is zero threat to you, or is it good to have that security blanket? If something goes wrong, we know we have someone that can come in and play.
I think for this situation, I think you got to have somebody that can come in and play. You got to have somebody that can come in and keep the offense on task. That's why it was so important. And I said this last year. If you want to keep your team, you better throw Mason Rudolph in there. Because what Mason Rudolph does is he keeps your offense moving, keeps them on schedule. Is he great? No. Will he win you a bunch of games? No. But he does give you an opportunity to do what you need to do as far as an offense. The last thing you want is to go on the field and the defense is like, man, we back on the field again. Like, gosh. And that's what was happening with Will Levis.
Yes.
But when Mason Rudolph went in the game, I'm not going to say it was like going from night to day. It wasn't, but at least as a defense, I got an opportunity to sit and rest for a minute because Mason was going to at least get us to the second drive.
Mm-hmm.
Will Levis didn't get you to the second or third drive. So a Brandon Allen can get you to a second drive and possibly a third drive. He can keep your offense on task, but he's not a guy that can lead your team to victory. I don't think that's the case. I don't think he can.
Trey is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Trey.
Hey, Trey.
Hey, I just want to say, hey, I know y'all debating and this and this and this and that, but who is this Brandon Allen guy, and is he competing with Will Levis for the start? Y'all ain't even talking about that.
We can talk about that, Trey. We can talk about that.
Hey, is he going to compete with Will Levis for the starting job, or are they going to sell the pick? I'm thinking they're going to sell the pick.
Thank you for the call, Trey. So let's talk about this for a moment.
Uh-huh.
If the Titans signed Brandon Allen with the intent of him being their starting quarterback, we might as well start looking at the top pick in the 2026 NFL draft, because the Titans would be tanking. That's exactly what would be happening. Now, is Brandon Allen competing with Will Levis for the backup job? Yes. Again, everything points in the direction right now, emphasis on right now, everything points in the direction of the Titans drafting Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. And one texter says, this probably will make fellow Titans fans mad, but with Levis and Allen on the roster, would you be okay with the McNair treatment? If they draft Ward, he is QB3 during the rookie year. I don't think, if you wanted to do that, Derek, the Titans should have signed a more seasoned veteran quarterback. They should have signed Jameis Winston. They could have even signed Mac Jones. Like, you need you can't go into the season with Brandon Allen or Will Levis as your starting quarterback unless your ultimate outcome is to be as bad as humanly possible.
Yeah, I don't think you can say, okay, we're going to draft Cam Ward, but Cam, you're sitting and
you're not even
Will
dressing.
Levis, you're not even dressing. Will Levis is going to be our guy, or Brandon Allen is going to be our guy. What you do is that festers competition. That's what that does, and it allows sort of the cream to rise to the top. It allows guys to figure themselves out in the space that they're in. So whether it be Brandon Allen, whether it be Will Levis, or whoever they choose to draft, you are competing. But to me, like I said earlier in the show, I think if you want to slow play this, then you do what Kansas City did. Even though Kansas City, and Willie was right about that, even though Kansas City was in a better position that the Tennessee Titans are in now, you can still slow play this thing. You can say, listen, we're going to make whoever wins this, and hell, it may be Will Levis. I'm not going to completely say that Will Levis is not in the mix. It can be Will Levis, but if it is Will Levis, it will be because he beat out Brandon Allen, or he beat out Cam Ward to be the starting quarterback, not just giving it to him like they did last year. There was no competition for Will Levis last year. That I think that hurt him more than helping him. I think this year you will get a better version of Will Levis. Why? Because I think innately Will Levis is a competitor. I think that's in him. So now he sees someone trying to take either a starting position away from him or a backup position away from him. So he's going to come out and he's going to give you the best version of himself. Well, if he's going to give you the best version of himself, that's going to make the quarterback room much better. So to me, whoever wins that second job may end up being the quarterback to start the season. Because if they draft Cam Ward, he may not be ready.
615-737-1025. Should the Titans have signed a more seasoned backup quarterback? Presumably again for Cam Ward. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, there are a couple of other quarterback situations around the league that interest me, and I want to get Derek's thoughts on those coming up next. 615-737-1025. A quick score update from the SEC tournament. Auburn 36, Ole Miss 30, 16:47 in the second half. So Auburn up 6-30. Now it's 36-30. I think that's exactly what I just said. 36-30 Auburn against Ole Miss early second half at Bridgestone Arena. We will continue to provide updates of the SEC tournament all day long. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3. The Game. That was Daniel Jones, or should I say, new Indianapolis Colts quarterback, Daniel Jones, being introduced in Indianapolis. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get to that, Troy is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Troy, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious. At what point do you point your finger at the Titans organization on how they're doing these younger quarterbacks? They've spent the last 4 or 5 years grabbing a rookie quarterback, throwing him out to the wolves, and not getting any out of it.
Thanks for the call, Troy. I mean, I look, Derek, I know I understand. You know, Marcus Mariota, the Titans used the 2nd overall pick on Marcus Mariota. He had his moments. It ultimately didn't work out. Will Levis, we all know, we all lived the Will Levis experience. It's not one we remember fondly, but how much of that is on the Titans organization? How much of that is on the specific quarterbacks? And look, the Titans have done one thing right this offseason so far. They have shored up their offensive line. They paid big money for Dan Moore. We expect him to start at left tackle, which means J.C. Latham is at right tackle. They bring in Kevin Zeitler to be the right guard. By the way, Derek, you weren't on for this the other day, but you know, one of the fringe benefits of all of these moves on the offensive line is you may never have to hear the right tackle story again. That story will hopefully be retired. We do not have to hear the right tackle story ever again. But look, if the Titans take a quarterback at number 1, Troy, there are going to be a lot of people like Troy that say, how can he succeed in Tennessee? I mean, it's inevitable that that's going to happen.
Yeah, and this has plagued the Tennessee Titans for some years now. Honestly, since Steve McNair. Since Steve McNair was drafted, and then ultimately him going to Baltimore, they have not been able to find a long-term fix that they drafted at quarterback. They haven't been able to develop a quarterback that they drafted, whether it was Marcus Mariota, whether, you know, it was Will Levis or the guys in between. They just, for whatever reason, they haven't done a good job with developing their young quarterbacks. None of their young quarterbacks got to a second contract. And that is an indictment on the organization. Now, listen, the coaching staff was different in all these situations, but the fact remains, they didn't develop a young quarterback. So this is something that, you know, hopefully the trend of them not being able to develop a young quarterback and getting them to a second contract, it ends with whoever they draft this year.
Mariota would have had 3 coaches, right? Wisenhunt, Malarkey, and Vrabel.
Yeah. So and for whatever reason, they couldn't get him to a second contract. And I've talked about this before with the Titans, with their inability to develop a quarterback and have a quarterback since Steve McNair. But here's what tells me this may change. One, Brian Callahan. I do think Brian Callahan is a really good coach. I think this year he will get an opportunity to just show people that he knows what he's doing. But not only that, he went out and hired Mike McCoy for a reason. Okay, there's a reason he went out and hired him. He's a former quarterbacks coach. He was quarterbacks coach last year was it Houston? If I remember, he spent the last 2 seasons the Jaguars. Spent the last few seasons with the Jaguars. And say what you want to say about Trevor Lawrence, but I think Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. He's dealt with a lot of injuries himself. But you bring in Mike McCoy, you got Brian Callahan there. I think they're trying to add as much experience and expertise to that quarterback room as possible, because they know they're drafting a quarterback this year, and for whatever, they gotta make it work. And how do you try to make it work? Is you go out and get as many bright individuals as possible to try to tackle this problem. And hopefully adding McCoy and Callahan and whoever else, it helps fix this long problem that the Titans have had since Steve McNair with developing quarterbacks.
So let's get back to Indianapolis. Daniel Jones, remember, let go by the Giants, winds up with the Vikings near the end of the season, signs with the Indianapolis Colts. And to me, Derek, this screams as a warning to Anthony Richardson. I mean, Daniel Jones, we know that he hasn't lived up to the expectations in the NFL. But could Daniel Jones fits the next Sam Darnold type of situation. High draft pick, failed in New York, gets a second opportunity. We'll see what happens. But to me, this feels like a straighten up and fly right type of moment for Anthony Richardson. We are bringing in Daniel Jones, and they have been open about it being a competition at quarterback. And you could certainly argue that the Indianapolis Colts have done Anthony Richardson no favors at the early stages of his NFL career. What did you make of the move of Daniel Jones to the Colts and what it could mean for Anthony Richardson?
Man, it's weird because you go out and it's almost like, and I don't want to say you took a flyer.
Well, you can't say that on this show.
Yeah, you can't say that. Yeah, you're right. That's one of those words you can't say anymore. But they went out and they drafted a guy that has immense talent. But they knew it was going to take him some time. And instead of saying, you know what, we're just going to sit him this year and we're not going to play him, what did they do? They played him right away. And, hey, listen, he did okay, but he wasn't ready to play. And I think a lot of people overlooked it because of that one play that he made. That one play where he threw the ball. I don't know if any quarterback in the universe could make that throw that he made. And he threw it damn at 70 yards, it seemed like. Picture perfect pass. And that made everybody say, wow. That's why Indianapolis drafted him. Yeah, that is why they drafted him. But he's not ready to play. They benched him last year. They benched their fourth. He was the fourth pick in the NFL draft, right?
Yes.
And they end up benching him. And then, for all intents and purposes, he was supposed to stay on the bench, and then they end up putting him back in as a starter.
And there was the whole thing about him coming out of the game because he was tired.
Exactly.
That whole thing.
So, I mean, this has been a cluster for this team. And now you add Daniel Jones to the mix, who just like Richardson, he was a guy that got benched, then got thrown back in there. But what saved him was Saquon Barkley. That saved him. That got him a huge contract, which, listen, I'm not going to say he didn't deserve it, but his play didn't dictate he deserved that big contract, but they gave it to him. So now you bring him in here to Indianapolis. What it does, I think, is it causes competition. Because I don't think he had competition. Anthony Richardson had competition last year. It causes competition from the first day now. Now Anthony Richardson has to go in competing for the starting job instead of handing it right to him. And I think that'll make him a better player. So I don't think they're going to move off of Anthony Richardson at all. Even if Daniel Jones ends up being a starter, I don't think they're going to move off from him because the deal is a 2-year deal, 1-year deal?
I believe it's a 1-year deal.
It's a 1-year deal. So you allow Richardson to compete, and maybe say Daniel Jones win the position. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden now you're trading Richardson. You're not. You're going to keep him, allow him to continue to grow, allow him to continue to develop, and then when he's ready, put him underneath center. So I don't read this as something big. I just think they are covering I can't say that either. Covering the bases?
No, I don't think
I
that's
can
been
say covering
banned yet.
bases.
I don't think that's been banned
that
yet.
hasn't been banned yet. The other one, checking all that has been banned.
Yes.
But I think they're covering the bases right now. Because if he still doesn't show that he's ready, at least they can say we can go to a more experienced quarterback that has played a lot of games, that has played in a playoff game, we can lean on him until the young quarterback is ready.
Let's quickly talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was captured taking a pensive stroll on the beach in Malibu, thinking about all of the decisions he's made in his life, was wrapped in a big old towel, had an AirPod in, I think. Still hasn't signed. Right now, it feels like the two options are the Giants and the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you could even throw in the Vikings, depending on what they decide to do with J.J. McCarthy. So where do you think Aaron Rodgers ultimately ends up?
Man, I don't know, because you never know when Aaron. I mean, listen, I'm in my Aaron Rodgers vibe as well, man. I am. And y'all can hate on Aaron Rodgers all y'all want to, man, but this guy is living his life the best way he knows how. He's taking his time. He's doing what he wants to do, and he's gonna let NFL teams know when he's ready to make a decision, because I think there is still a small market for Aaron Rodgers. I think there are teams out there that would love to have him as their quarterback while they're either getting a young quarterback ready or they're still in that window of winning and possibly winning big in a playoff. So whether it's Pittsburgh, whether it's the Giants, or it could be another team. If I'm those teams, or if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm good with where I'm sitting at right now.
If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm picking the Giants because all my stuff is already there.
Yeah, you're right. You ain't got to go far.
You don't have to move. You're playing at the same stadium.
They just got to go get my stuff out of one locker room and put it in the other. That's
exactly.
all.
That's his stuff is there. That is an important thing when talking about a player's future. Moving, as we all know, is a pain in the ass. So all of his stuff is already in New Jersey. I presume he lives in New Jersey. So,
listen. Aaron Rodgers, I think, still has something left in the tank.
I would agree with that.
But it's going to have to be the right team.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to have to be a team where the head coach personality is more dominant than he is.
So Mike Tomlin.
Absolutely. It would have to be somebody like that where
Pittsburgh needs a quarterback.
where you walk in that building and it ain't about you, Aaron. It's about us as a team. And I am the leader of this team. Everybody knows that Mike Tomlin is the leader of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's been that way for darn near 20 years, okay? And whoever comes in at quarterback ain't changing it. Ben Roethlisberger didn't change it, so Aaron Rodgers wouldn't change it at all, okay? So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm looking at Pittsburgh. Like, I can go there. They got 2 stud receivers. They got a nice defense, upgraded their offensive line. Get me a running back, and let's go.
615-737-1025, an SEC tournament update for you. 9:36 remaining in the second half. Auburn, a 46-42 lead against Ole Miss. 46-42 Auburn, 9:36 left in the second half. The action continues in the SEC tournament at 2:30. Texas and Tennessee, followed by Missouri and Florida at 6, and Kentucky and Alabama at 8:30. All coverage. Keep it tuned into here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game for all updates on the SEC tournament. We will take it to the bank. Coming up next, we are live from the pub in the Gulch. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 the game. Willie Donick is not here. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, Willie Donick with the Predators in California. Jake Lyman and Teron Davenport filling in for Jared Stillman on Stillman & Company coming up next live here from the pub in the Gulch. It is time to take it to the bank, presented by F&M Bank. Business is complicated. Banking doesn't have to be. At F&M Bank. Quickly, one score update from the SEC at the under 8 timeout at Bridgestone Arena. Auburn 46, Ole Miss 44. A tight one for the Tigers in the quarterfinal against Ole Miss, 46-44 at the under 8. David James, quickly, let's recap last week.
All right, boys. So for Adam, you said Purdue over Illinois. That did not happen.
Nope.
You said Kentucky over Mizzou. That did happen. You said Auburn minus 8.5 over Alabama. That did not happen.
It did not.
Bama got a really good win over there. And you said Duke versus UNC. UNC would cover by 11.5. They did not cover 11.5.
It was close. I told you all it was going to be a close game. But
You're very true. But you only got 3 points this week for 146 total points.
Okay.
D-Mace, you said Vandy in the points over Georgia in 3.5. That did not happen. You said UT would beat them by over 14. They did not. They lost, I think. And you said Chaz over 20 points. Chaz got 23 points. And you said Ole Miss over Florida. That did not happen. So you only got 3 points as well.
Okay, that's good.
But he has 150 total points. You're close. You're inching closer.
But Derek did not gain ground. Derek did not make up ground, or I did not. It's even still, basically.
You didn't have an 0 for week, so there's still a chance.
Yes.
So Willie, he said Tennessee State plus 2.5. There was a push, so I gave him points for that. Arkansas minus 1.5. That did not happen. He said Illinois minus 4.5. That did happen. And Auburn minus 8.5. That did not happen as well. Well, actually, no, Arkansas did beat. Arkansas did win. So he had total 7 points for 135 total points. And I said Bama would win. Cha-ching. I said the over as well. That did happen. My main flaw was I picked Mizzou to win over Kentucky. That did not happen. But my guy PJ Haggerty, he had over 20 points. So I got a total of 9 points for 129 total points.
Okay. Derek, you're in the lead. Start us off.
All right. I am taking we're going to go to the SEC tournament first. Give me Texas in a point. Tennessee is a 9.5 point favorite, so I'm taking Texas in a point. Give me Kentucky in a point. They are 7.5. Okay.
Alabama 7.5.
Alabama. Give me North Carolina and the points. And then I just saw the last game I wanted. Oh, Clemson, Louisville. Give me Louisville in that one.
All right. I will go next. Auburn and Alabama will meet in the SEC title game. Now, Auburn and Mississippi and Ole Miss are tied at 46 right now, so I may miss this one in the next few minutes. 46-46, Auburn and Ole Miss with 6.5 minutes left in the second half. But I predict Auburn will prevail and face the Crimson Tide in the SEC championship game. I will also take Kentucky to cover against Alabama. Kentucky, a 7.5 point underdog. I will take Kentucky to cover. Vanderbilt will be a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament on Selection Sunday. Vanderbilt will be a 10 seed. And give me the Blue Raiders to defeat Jacksonville State today in the Conference USA semis.
Blue Raiders.
All right, who did Willie pick?
All right, so Willie, he said today's picks were, he said Tennessee minus 9.5 over Texas. Oh, 1 second. He said St. John's minus 3.5 over Marquette. He said Alabama minus 7.5 against Kentucky. And this is my favorite one he picked, which was Houston minus 6.5 against BYU.
Okay.
Those are some solid picks today. Now, I am a true blue. I went to MTSU, so I obviously picked MTSU to beat Jackson State. Go Blue Raiders, true blue till I die. I also, this is my wild card. This one I threw in there. I was like, let me get a chance. I want to be able to, get some ground again. But I said Alabama would win the SEC tournament.
Okay.
That's my pick.
Okay.
That's my, hopefully that happens. I agree with you, Dean. I said Clemson would beat Louisville. And I said over 152.5 for Duke and UNC.
Yes. Duke and Carolina, the rematch, third meeting of the season tonight. Obviously, no Cooper Flag for the Blue Devils. North Carolina hoping to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament. A win over Duke would certainly do that quickly. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Billy is on the line. Billy, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Okay. I was wanting to talk about the Titans picking Cam Ward first.
Sure.
How many of y'all actually think he deserves to be picked first? And you have to think back. The Titans the last 5 years have picked needs, and they've missed on basically about every one of them. Now, JC, the jury's still out on him. But you're taking a real risk, and there's a lot of really good players in this draft. And if the quarterback's not there, don't force it. I mean, why waste another pick on a quarterback you're not sure whether he's the guy or not? I don't understand it. And I like to say go Preds, and y'all have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Billy. I mean, this is what we've been talking about today, Derek. Again, operating under the assumption that Cam Ward will be taken number 1 overall by the Tennessee Titans. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think, what Willie thinks, what Jared thinks, what Robbie thinks, what Joe thinks, what Chase thinks, what Big Joe thinks. All that matters is what the Titans think. And if the Titans think Cam Ward is worthy of the number 1 overall pick, even if all of the draft analysts are saying, wait a minute, if Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker and the brain trust of the Tennessee Titans, if they think that Cam Ward is worthy of that pick, that's all that matters.
It is. And, you know, do I think he deserves to be a number 1 pick? I'm not the one picking. Listen, he had a hell of a senior season. And he's worthy. He did enough to be worthy of being drafted, you know, in the first round. And if the Titans feel that he's the guy, then pick him. That's my thing. If everyone in that building if there is a consensus throughout that building that Cam Ward is the guy, then you draft him. You know, because that's, like you said, Adam, that's all that matters. They don't care what I say. They don't care what you say, Adam.
They
don't care what anybody else. They don't care what anybody else. They should care what I say on certain positions.
Yes, they should, absolutely.
But if you feel that Cam Ward is your guy, draft him and make it work. Because
that's all that matters.
Yeah, because eventually, you know, either, you know, GMs and head coaches are fired for one reason, one of two reasons. Either your team is bad or the quarterback you drafted, you didn't develop. That's why you get fired. So we'll see.
We want to thank the Pub in the Gulch for having us today. Why wait for St. Patrick's Day? The party starts early at the Pub Nashville. Enjoy proper shenanigans all weekend long with Irish fare, drink specials, and live entertainment, including Irish step dancers, bagpipes, and more. Don't miss the fun. Remember, St. Patrick's Day is on Monday. Also, make sure to come out to the official Nashville St. Patrick's Day Parade presented by Aer Lingus, kicking off at 10 a.m. tomorrow in East Nashville in 5 Points. I will be there from 9 to 11 with plenty of things to give away. Just come and have some fun, meet me, see me, and I'll give you some stuff, probably. One more quick SEC tournament update for you. 4:09 left in the second half. Auburn 51, Ole Miss 47. So a tight game. The Tigers holding on to a 4-point lead against the Rebels at Bridgestone Arena. Tennessee and Texas coming up at 2:30. Missouri and Florida at 6. Kentucky and Alabama at 8:30. Make sure to tune in to 102.5, 106.3 The Game for the remainder of the day for your updates on the SEC tournament. Jared is out today. Jake Lyman and Teron Davenport will fill in on Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful weekend. Peace.